Alright, so when you're getting started out with FPV, there's a lot of gear you need to buy and there's certain decisions you're going to have to make. So I just thought I'd show you what I went with because it might make it easier for you to make your choice. So let's get into it. Alright, the first thing you should always get when you're starting out with FPV, I reckon anyways, is a radio controller, just a controller. This is the most important thing because obviously as a human, this is what you use to engage with the drone. And the difference between this and something you might have seen on a Mavic or Phantom is that the throttle stick doesn't auto center. It's a linear control from top to bottom and bottom to top. And that's what allows you to control the throttle with more feel and finesse. So that's a really important thing. These can also be controlled, these can control many drones. So you can program them in so that you can have a few of your FPVs connected to the one controller and just easily switch between them. The reason why this is the most important thing to buy first though is because you should really jump into the simulator for a few hours at least. I spent about 3 weeks at about 4 to 5 hours a week in the simulator before even taking off with the drone. At some stage after using the simulator, you really want to feel the real world physics. At that point, I reckon that's when you should jump outside with the drone. Obviously, you'll have to get that set up first. We'll get into that a bit later, but the radio control allows you to use the simulator in the computer before you get out in the field and start crashing your drones, which starts costing you money. So I highly recommend starting out with a good controller. I went with the TBS Tango 2 Pro. I found it be really good. I don't really have anything much to compare it to. I've had a feel of the Radio Master TX16S and also the Ethics Mambo controller. They're both really good too. I just wanted to go with something small, and with the built-in Crossfire, I think that's really good. I'll tell you a little bit more about Crossfire later, but that's a really important thing to have built in to this. I think that's made it really slimline and easy for me to move around and work with. So I highly recommend the TBS Tango 2 as a start out controller. It's been really good to me so far. So yeah, definitely start out with a controller, I think. Just quickly with your controller, there's going to be a few different transfer protocols. Like I said, this one has Crossfire built in. There's Crossfire, there's FR Sky, and there's Tracer. The two most predominant ones now at the moment are Crossfire and Tracer. FR Sky is almost the legacy or retro one now. There's not too many people who would put that in a new build, but if you've got some older gear, obviously you'd be connecting into that. So I would always recommend looking at something that's got Crossfire or Tracer, but you can also get modules that'll plug into different controllers to allow you to transfer between different protocols. All right, the next big choice you're going to have is which type of video transmission you're going to go with. So there's a choice between analog and digital. Digital definitely gives you the better picture and the better look, the more cinematic feel and engagement. But analog gives you faster transmission. So if you're looking to do really fast aerobatics and freestyle, then you're probably going to go analog maybe. And if you're looking for that cinematic look, which is what I'm going for, you'd probably go digital. Now, there is a bit of a movement towards digital, and obviously digital will improve, but at the moment, that's just generally how it works. So I went with the DJI FPV goggles that I got with the DJI FPV combo. I found that really good, and as you know, I've spoken about that in previous videos, so you can go back and watch that about the combo system. But these goggles work great with the custom built systems too, so I'm definitely a digital guy. All right, so the most important thing you're going to need is obviously a drone. They're a little bit more complicated than just buying a single piece of equipment like the controller or the headset. There's a few different components that make them up. When it comes to the drones itself, it's a pretty contentious issue. If you've been around the FPV drone world for a while, obviously you're a big believer in building it from scratch yourself. I believe in that too. I'm a bit late to the games and I'm a bit more instant gratification, so I went with the buy and to fly option. I'm working on the pretense that as I crash this, I'll learn to fix this one, and from there I'll start to learn about drones in general. So I've got two drones here. They both pretty much have the same build, so it makes it easy for me to switch between them. But I've got this one, which is the Protec 35, and this is in repair at the moment because it's got a busted motor, but it's going to allow me to show you what's inside these drones. And I've got the Pusher 25 here, which is, they're both iFlight drones. They're both bind and fly, and they've both, like I said, got pretty much the same stuff. This will be my outdoor cine whip. This will be my indoor one. I've only learnt that through flying them recently, but I'll dive deeper into what parts are inside these so you guys can compare it against what you might be buying at the moment. All right, so in every single FPV drone, there's always a flight computer. There's always an electronic speed controller. Sometimes there's 4, one for each motor or for ever how many motors there are. In this particular drone, it's an all-in-one flight computer electronic speed controller. So that means that there's on one board all of the systems in place in order to do that. That's not necessarily a good way to go. It is a compact way to go. It's a slightly more expensive way to go, and it is simple. But obviously you got all your eggs in one basket. So if you fry one of those during maintenance flight or whatever, then you're in trouble, because that's a bigger cost all in one basket. So you could choose to have separate electronic speed controllers. These drones don't have that. It's just all in one. And I did that for simplicity and also because I'm lazy. The other thing that you'll always have is a video transmission and camera system. So that's what sends the image to the goggles. So there's a camera and video transmission system. In these systems, it's made by Caddx. It could be a DJI system, and DJI licenses the whole technology to Caddx to manufacture into what seems to be smaller, cheaper, equally good components. So I'm a big fan of those, and they've been really good so far. They can be a little bit of a bugger to set up in this confined space with the right angle adapters, as you'll see, but at the same time they do an excellent job once you got them set up. So that's a vision system that's built in, and that's a digital system that feeds into the goggles. The other system that's in there is, as I was talking about before, the crossfire radio system. So there's a crossfire receiver in here that you have to bind to the controller, and that's what I guess gives you I think it's 900 megawatts or something frequency. I'll write whatever it actually is there. But yeah, that allows you for good long range control, well, reasonably long range control from the controller. Obviously, there's also motors. So different drones will have different motors. We could do a whole video about motors, but there's generally a motor for every blade or propeller that you've got. Most will have 4, some will have 8, some 3. You can find those sometimes. There is one with 1. But yeah, that's basically the standard configuration. Obviously, there's a frame as well. You can have other things like GPS units and stuff installed. These ones are very basic. I'm always flying these within spotter's line of sight, so I don't need GPS units or anything. Maybe if we get into some long range stuff in the future, but at the moment they're doing really, really well. So in those systems, you can compare that to what you're getting. I'll put a parts list here because it's easier to see, but I think it's a beast all-in-one flight computer ESC, a Caddx Vista video transmission system, the Crossfire receiver on an iFlight frame using the iFlight Zing motors on both, just at different sizes, and that's worked really well. Obviously this one's going to be in repair for a few more days, and I can still fly this one and keep my skills up to scratch. So when you get a drone, it's obviously going to work in with the gear that you get. Just to be clear, I really like the Crossfire and DJI digital systems combined with the Caddx and Crossfire on the drones. I can easily switch the controller between them, and it's really just a button to bind to the goggles, so that makes that really easy. All right, so after you've got all that stuff, there might be some other little knickknacks that you need to get as well. One of the most important things is batteries. You'll need to have the right batteries for the right drone. So different sized drones will need different sized batteries for power reasons and for balance reasons. So when you buy your drone, just ask whoever you're buying it off to give you some good recommendations on which batteries to get, because they're really important. The other thing you probably want to get is some type of camera. I use the GoPro cameras or the DJI Action cameras, depending on which size of drone. Again, if you're just wanting to get nice footage, the footage you get from the DVR inside the drone is okay sometimes, but if you want to get nicer, more cinematic stuff, you'll want one of those cameras. Obviously, they're pretty expensive, so you might want to scale that to your budget. The other thing is sort of spare parts and other accessories. So spare parts, first of all, I have heaps of extra propellers for both drones and also the DJI FPV combo drone. So if you crash or something, you can quickly put something that's nice and fresh on and keep yourself in the air, because you don't want to be have lots of downtime, because then you like lose your skills. I've also got frames, extra frames for the 35 in particular. That cracks frames all the time. So I've bought them in bulk from China because they're really handy to have ready to go as well. There's lots of other tools you'll need, but I basically just carry a basic toolkit with some hex drivers, an 8mm socket spanner, and some side cutters, and just a Stanley knife in order to cut stuff off if you need to. Other accessories is like a lanyard. I don't use that, or a strap for the controller. I don't use that too much for this little controller, but one day I might. This box is to carry the goggles. I highly recommend having something like this for both rigidity, to help keep them in good condition like that, but also to keep them out of direct sunlight. If you get sunlight through the lenses, it can burn your LCD screens. I see that quite a bit, so do that. GoPro comes with a protective box nowadays with the Hero 9 or the Hero 10, so you'll get that one for free. And when it comes to spares, I've learnt recently that it's not too bad to have a few extra motors on hand either, for quick swap outs of those. So those are the things that you need most. Like I said, I'm going to do a video later on about tools when you're doing the maintenance, but this is the gear that you'll need to start to get flying. Pretty much sums up what you'll need to get started with FPV. This has been just a bit of a prelude video to the next video I'm going to do, which is the start of my FPV journey, where a few months ago I did the full setup and binding of the ProTech 35 HD. So if you're just new to FPV yourself, it's probably a good place to jump in and come along for the ride with me. It's going to be a really fun and exciting time. So yeah, stay tuned. Don't forget to follow, like and subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, don't forget to leave some comments. So thanks again for watching.